Good evening. We're going to get started here in just a second. We always open with a prayer and a pledge, and then we got a lot of fun stuff to cover tonight. Okay, so this time I have Rick Davies as the chairman of the Cherokee County Republican Party, and Rick has been fighting these goons for a while on stuff, and they have a lovely new ordinance right now that they're going to want to push on us. So, Rick, you got that one. Take that one.
Well, it's 8:39. There's a football game on tonight. You sure we don't want to leave quickly?
Yeah.
Okay. So Jack asked me to talk about this. We had an executive board meeting this past Tuesday where I brought this up to the executive board for them to hear about what was going on. And I had been in conversations with our county commissioners for about a month prior to this. A new ordinance was, or I should say a new ordinance, an ordinance was changed in regards to signage in Cherokee County. Apparently there was a Supreme Court case and a decision that was made. It was was it Gilbert or Dean versus Arizona? I think it was Gilbert versus Arizona, where they were putting out signs around the town. It was for a church, and they were going out about 5 p.m. Saturday, putting out a bunch of signs, a couple hundred signs, because they were a mobile church. And then they were going and having their services, and then going afterwards and going to pick up the signs. Well, apparently the city didn't like that too much. And they started fining them, not necessarily because of the sign, but because of what was on the sign is what it ended up turning out being. And so they changed their local ordinances to restrict those specific speech on those signs. So they ended up bringing it up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court basically came back and said, you can't do that. It's a violation of the First Amendment. You can't restrict a sign based on a specific type of speech. So they came back and they came out with this decision, and basically it got pushed down to pretty much every county in the United States. And our county commissioners took this up and they made a change to our ordinances here locally. And I was alerted to this by our elections board, one of our elections board representatives. And she said, when we got the notice and they put this out to all the candidates in Cherokee County, we've currently got a sheriff's race in Cherokee County. And they said, you cannot have any signs out. You cannot put any signs out until the end of qualifying, which is in March. Now, mind you, they've been running, they've been announced. So basically, they are now currently, for any signs they have out there, in violation of this ordinance. What's even worse is, and I am not a legal scholar, I'm not a lawyer, I'm an IT guy, but reading through this ordinance, my concern was there was no differentiation between public right-of-way and private property. So basically, the marshal, who is responsible for cleaning up the signs, if they desired, based on the vagueness of this ordinance, could literally walk onto your private property, remove a sign, and leave, and not have to say anything. So I brought this up to the county commissioners, brought it up to the chair of the county commissioners, and said, I have some concerns about this, and laid out the concerns. And he came back and said, well, here's why we did this. Here's the Supreme Court decision. And ultimately, I'm not a legal scholar, and reading this was literally like reading Greek to me. So I gave it to our general counsel, as well as another lawyer that we have on our executive board. To say that they came back, what would you consider Maury? Heated?
Oh, no.
Hot?
No, like a ping pong ball that you threw that's bouncing against him. Maury's a little guy. He was so wound up. Yeah, I was going to explode.
So Maury ended up sending me literally a 6-page email with case references, Supreme Court references. There was stuff in there about Citizens United. I mean, just literally a ton of reference material. Basically, he came back and said, as best as I can tell, this ordinance is completely unconstitutional. And his terms were it had a chilling effect on free speech. And so what I'm doing, we're going to have Maury and our general counsel, Kyle Wallace, come in and put together basically a bulleted point list of their concerns. And we are going to go, I am going to go. I'm also going to try to get the Democratic chair of Cherokee County and the Libertarian chair of Cherokee County involved with this as well, and kind of present a united front. Go to the, whoever would like to participate, any of the parties that are recognized in the county, they can all participate. Go to the county commissioners, present this to them with our concerns, and ask them to either remove the revised ordinance or revise the ordinance again. And ultimately, one of the resolutions that evening was if they do not, or if they will not, and they are not cooperative, the Cherokee County Republican Party will pursue legal pursuits. So We're hoping it won't get to that because that could be some money, but nonetheless, this is something that we feel is important. It's a violation of our First Amendment rights. There should be no basis for them to come on your property, whether you own a lot on the corner. Now, we have to make certain concessions for safety. You don't want a big 50-foot sign somewhere near the roadway that's blocking driveways or blocking the roadway and you're looking down the road. We get that. But you should not have the ability to tell somebody what they can and can't do on their private property. And that's our major concern. So that's the ordinance. I would highly recommend, if you're not in Cherokee County, check your local county ordinances for signs and see if this is coming down from the Supreme Court, quote unquote. This might very well be something that your county commissioners have changed, and I didn't know about it until I was warned by our elections board member. I didn't hear anything about it. There was supposedly a moratorium with signs that were put in place. I didn't hear anything about it. Yes?
Does this apply only to campaign signs or any kind of sign?
Well, the ruling from the Supreme Court basically said they can't differentiate based on the speech. So when you look through the ordinance, the reason, and this is probably why it's so vague. You have it up there? Oh, never mind, okay. The reason why it's probably so vague is because they can't tell you what you can and can't do based on what is on that sign. They can only give you the restrictions based on size or placement and so on. But in this case, it is so vague, as I mentioned before, that it makes no differentiation whatsoever between public right-of-way and private property. So that's a problem in my eyes. Conrad? That is in effect now. I think they said it was July that they passed it. Yeah.
Unanimous
So.
vote by the commissioners?
I didn't look up the vote, so I don't know, but I imagine, to Jack's point, obviously this was not created by our county commissioners. This was done by the zoning board, some of those unelected bureaucrats. So they're the ones who came in, they're the ones who revised it, they're the ones who presented it to the county commissioners, and then the county commissioners voted on it. I would surmise, I don't think any of our county commissioners are lawyers. No. So they have no idea what this looks like. So they're relying upon these unelected bureaucrats and the lawyers that they work with.
County attorney is running everything in Cherokee County, so that's.
May very well be. But ultimately, it's our goal to try to at least get them to understand our concerns, hopefully revise or rescind this, and if not, then we will take the appropriate action. So, hold on one second, let me get to field. Yes, sir.
Are the commissioners involved?
They have ours behind their names. Yes.
I'm the chair of the county. Well, you don't have to be a lawyer to know on the First Amendment rights.
Well, if I remember one of the statements that our lovely chairman said, he said, well, it's not in the Constitution that you can't do this.
Oh, I believe it is.
So if you can't,
Yeah.
well, but see, and this is what a lot of these, but this is the political mantra that goes on now. It doesn't say you can't, so you gotta prove to me otherwise. So it's just, it's the trying to melt your head down.
The other thing is, look, it doesn't spell it out specifically, but the problem is it comes down to the person who is actually coming to be called out to enforce the law. So it's at their discretion. If it doesn't say that you can't, but it doesn't say that you can, the call is up to them. The other concern that I had, and I expressed this to everyone, was if you think about this could potentially be used as a weapon in a race, right? Because you can have somebody call up and say, well, based on this law, you, Mr. Cherokee County Marshal, have to remove this sign.
Right.
And then the next thing you know, that sign is gone. So that could cost the candidate money and potential problems. People may think somebody stole their sign or that signs may have been taken. So it just ends up snowballing to much larger problems. Conrad?
I would imagine this would apply to the real estate signs that we see everywhere as well.
There's probably a variance in
Sure,
there.
it goes to everyone.
There's a sniping part of it. It's a 15-page document. You gotta read the thing because I don't know how these guys think like this. They write this crap. I mean, seriously.
Just recently, they've been already already contacted Canton to have back working off.
Marshall?
Yeah, no, not Marshall.
Oh, this was the city of Canton. Okay.
And
But we noticed.
Got mine too.
they've shown this at that time, the ordinance, and it does exempt real estate signs.
It does, exactly.
There you go.
So that goes back to the decision in Arizona even more. you know, where they
Right, so they're
differentiate.
picking and choosing based on the sign and based on what's on the sign, what they are considering permissible and not permissible.
Who's that lobbyist and who does?
Joe,
Alex, do you have a question?
Oh, I just know-
Let's see back there, hold on one second.
I was about to say that just sounds insane. You're saying that they exempt real estate signs but not political speech. That's insane.
Yes. Hold on one
That's
second.
funny.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a couple things. Are news signs, permitted?
there's something in the ordinance about that.
Yeah, I think they've covered that. I haven't read every section. I haven't read every section. I mean, obviously, this is the one pertaining to the role that I'm in, which is political. So,
Another thing, you need to get someone's choice of private property, plant some signs on there, wait till it can get taken down, and then, you know. So then you have to proceed, so put us over.
well, and this is where I differ a little bit from maybe some of my Republican compatriots. I believe in going to the source first and at least giving them an opportunity, right? Addressing the issue, saying this is what we want, please address it. Only after they refuse, then we start going and taking additional action. So, and that's just how I operate personally. I want to make sure we give them an opportunity.
But he's right about damages too. He's
Well,
right.
correct.
You're right and he's right. You got two rights there.
Well, it's considered, if it's on private property, if it's a candidate's sign, it's the candidate's property that has been placed, obviously not necessarily in the right of way, that's,
Right, or
there's
some-
laws about
some
that.
sympathetic person that will land.
Right.
Of course, you're using sugar, and that's a good thing, but if you needed to go further, that would be a further step.
Right, well, I don't want to go from 0 to 100, right? I want to go and give them the opportunity to at least respond, and then hopefully they'll do the right thing, or at least what we consider to be the right thing. And if they don't, then we go further.
Can you bring in the army?
Yes, Dave?
I put down signs in Holly Springs all the time. Now, the city of Holly Springs has a sign ordinance. Now, if you're going to put a sign out, first of all, it has to be behind a guardrail or poles or whatever is there. That, out of the right of way, site right of way and everything, so it don't obstruct traffic.
Right. But that's considered public property at that point, right?
Okay, and the other part of it is what I found out, well, they have if you want to keep your signs up, you actually have to pay the city for the use to put the signs up, and they'll give you a permit and everything like that. Now, I put signs up on weekends. The rule there is, if you put them out Friday night, put them out Sunday night, there's no county workers, city workers.
Very true.
That's clever.
I'll vouch for what Dave says, because I do a lot of my craft shows, and what we're gonna do now is at Friday at 5:01 at night, we're gonna put our signs out and have them gone before Monday morning, because there's nobody working, they're already home.
That is what I found out. You put them out during the day, and don't have a permit or anything, work cold.
The problem with Canton city limits is if he's giving up his weekends to pull those signs, and taking 2 days off every week.
That's dedication for you.
Yeah. That's like the Town Lake Nazi, huh, Conrad?
Yeah.
Remember the guy? Yeah. There was a guy who actually, I don't know, he may have died, I think. I
I
haven't
hope
seen him
so.
anymore.
I hope so.
But this guy he took it on as his own thing in Town Lake Parkway in Woodstock, all the way from 575 all the way to Fells Ferry. If there was any sign, I don't care what it was, they were gone. This guy took them in his little Toyota, and this car was just looked like, you know, a hoarder. All these signs coming out the car. It was ridiculous.
Pop art.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, so, once again, if you know your elections board representative, but does everybody here know how the elections boards work in the county? So the two parties have two appointed representatives to the elections board. So find out who they are, ask your party chair, ask somebody in the party they should know. Get to know them and ask them. I mean, this is how I found out about this. I mean, I'm the chair of the party, and obviously I can't be everywhere and hear everything at any given moment, but we rely on these people to give us this information, which in this case they did. So, Conrad?
Is ours Cindy and
Cindy Costello and Helmut Baxter, correct.
So everybody needs to remember, so as goes Cherokee. If this continues, if this stands, so goes Cobb, so goes Gwinnett, so goes Fayette, so goes DeKalb, so goes everybody, because the precedent's been set at that point. So it's going to be so much more. I mean, really, in a legal sense, here's case. Here, this one already went through. Why can't we do it? So then it goes on from there. So this is really, you know, if people say that's not a big deal, it is a big deal. Believe me, it's a really big deal.
Yeah.
Because in a county like Fayette, that's largely Republican, Republicans,
Yes.
the Democrats will push it to happen.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Simple
Exactly.
stuff.
So,
Very
Bill.
good.
Yeah, last year, or last major election, the HOAs got involved, and they were, there was an HOA in the community, they were saying you can't put a sign, well, that's not what the Supreme Court said. The Supreme Court says the political signs.
Okay.
Yes and no, and here's, so, when you go into an HOA or a covenant neighborhood, you basically, you waive your rights at that point by going in and signing that HOA or that covenant agreement, so you have to abide by the rules that they put in force. You may not like them, you may not agree with them, but you basically waive your rights at that point when you sign that agreement.
But I don't think they have the right to, even though they have you sign it, they don't have the right to do it.
Oh, absolutely, they do. They absolutely do, because they can tell you what color your house can be or can be, they can tell you
Yes.
your lawn has to be a certain height, they can tell you that,
Your
you know.
civil rights or
Been there,
your
done that.
constitutional rights.
Not according to Chip Rogers. He says otherwise. He
Well-
said you can limit the size, but you can't stop free speech. And HOAs are unconstitutional.
Well, I know there's been instances where they told a guy that he couldn't have a flag in his front yard, and then he ended up painting his house like a flag. There's ways around it. You know, they didn't have any restrictions on when you could paint your house, so he actually painted his house red and white stripes and a blue field of stars.
Yeah.
There's ways around it.
So, yes.
Cat Tea Party, he was in HOA, he's been here 6 months on his sign. So he put it in his front yard and he removed it. So what he did is he had the pickup, he took it between the cab of his truck and his work box, and it's on his truck.
There's always creative ways to get things done and find workarounds that are not encoded or put into law or ordinances. So be creative. If you think of ways like that, paint your house like a flag, whatever the case may be. Yes, sir.
The HOA, from our association, likes the wall, is the break. Very simple. Park your car, driveway, and you put a sign around your car. I'm not telling you.
That's what he was just saying, exactly. Yep.
Out of the house, in your car.
Right.
You leave your property there, the
Yes.
sign's there.
Or like we went back for our truck.
Well, like my mechanic Joe used to have. Joe used to have that sign. He had a 4x8 in the back of his truck.
I'm actually surprised Conrad hasn't got one of those wraps on his car.
They're affect residential waste.
That's true.
So, as these things go, as this progresses, I'll keep everybody informed